Thanks everyone for joining us tonight to talk with Thom about the 21st century client expectations and how to keep up and get ahead. I'm Vicky Jux from SPVS. I'm a SPVS board member. SPVS is a not-for-profit organisation for professionals within the veterinary industry, which provides a wide range of excellent non-clinical advice, guidance and support for its members to help them truly thrive in practice. These include the salary and fee surveys, business club, interactive e-learning hub, CV reading service for students and recent graduates, a popular supportive email discussion group, and relevant forward-looking non-clinical CPD and annual congress. We'd really like to thank PetsApp for their collaborative partnership and support for our congress. Now, Thom is a vet and he's run veterinary groups internationally. He's sat on the board of and been an advisor to companies both within and outside of the veterinary sector. He is now the CEO and co-founder of PetsApp, a client engagement tool providing client communication, reminders, appointment booking and digital payments to hundreds of clinics and thousands of veterinary professionals. Thom is proud of the work that the PetsApp Pack have done in alleviating the load on veterinary teams, facilitating business growth while improving the care received by pets and their owners. Thanks, Thom. This looks like a great session this evening. Over to you.
Thanks so much. Thank you. So let me just get our slides going here. I thought with this being the quarter-way mark, with us being a quarter of the way through the 21st century, that now would be a good time for us to just check in. You know, how are you all doing? It's been quite the century so far. I don't think any of us could predicted what it would be for us personally, for the world, for our sector, for our pets, and for the veterinary professions. And indeed, many predictions for what the future would look like this century have proven to be wrong, misjudged or misplaced. Who here has found themselves down a YouTube rabbit hole listening to TED Talks? Well, if you have, you might have found yourself listening to the creator of Pleo, the pet robotic dinosaur, talking about the future of companionship. Now, he took everything that could go wrong with owning a pet, all the minor and major inconveniences, and stripped them away, leaving just Pleo here. She can hear you through her binaural microphones. She can feel you stroking her through her 14 force feedback sensors. And she can respond to you gently rocking her to sleep via her tilt and shake sensors. She doesn't need feeding, never gets sick, and certainly will not pee on your favorite rug just because you decided to have a lie-in on Easter Sunday. That's my recent experience. But this was almost 20 years ago when they came up with Pleo and did this TED Talk. How many of you on this call listening to the recording, how many of you own a Pleo? I bet none of you. And yet over half of all UK adults own at least one needy, sickness-prone, defecation factory, or also known as a pet. This cautionary tale should teach us at least three things. First of which is it's very difficult to make predictions, especially about the future. Secondly, sometimes a bug is actually a feature. For example, a pet owner may complain about having to get up early in the morning to take their dog out, but that same pet owner may derive an incredible amount of purpose and meaning out of this small act of care and devotion. And finally, it should tell you that pet ownership is an incredibly robust phenomenon, resilient in the face of disruption. Tamagotchis did not spell the end of pet ownership, nor did Furby, Nintendogs, or even Pleo. Pets have been around for, 15,000 years, maybe even longer than that. From Egyptian cats to Roman hounds, ours is an ancient bond. We have walked paw in palm for millennia. Books can go digital. Music can stream. Even friendships can be mapped to a database, I'm told. But a pet, you can't upload a wagging tail or a purring heartbeat. Think of the place of pets in modern times. Even Inspector Gadget had a dog. Even the coldest, coolest, most tech-enabled movie villains cradle cats. Right? They're just intrinsic to our culture. And there are over 20 million cats and dogs in the UK. That's not counting all the fish, birds, small mammals, snakes, etc. Over half of all adults own at least one pet, as we've said. So I think it's safe to say pets aren't going anywhere. And guess what? We're not going anywhere either. Looking at veterinary surgeons, about 30,000 of us, veterinary nurses, about 20,000, and veterinary receptionists, all told there are about 100,000 veterinary professionals in the UK alone, with numbers increasing steadily in the years since the pandemic. Now, having warned about the dangers of making predictions, I'm going to gaze into my crystal ball, or at least an AI generated, I like to think unflattering, but perhaps you can argue otherwise. AI generated version of me will look into his crystal ball, and I can just about hear a phone call from the near future. It's Thursday, it's 8:12 a.m. at your vet clinic, and a veterinary receptionist answers her third call. Morning, how can I help? Hello, I'm booking the first DHP booster you have for a 14-week-old Labrador named Nala. Does Tuesday at 10 work? The caller is polite, but synthetic. It's a consumer AI agent using the new OpenAI real-time API to comparison shop half a dozen practices in seconds. Ignore that trend, and your team becomes the switchboard for robots asking about vaccination prices. So we'll talk more about that vision of the future shortly, as well as the opportunities and challenges it will bring. But let's revisit the erroneous visions of the future that I just don't buy, because the PO direction of error that we started with is a common one. The modern incarnation of that is direct consumer digital disruptors pretending you can upload our patients to the cloud such that they can serve the needs of them entirely digitally, cutting out the physical veterinary premises entirely. And you can count on it that these companies will use artificial intelligence to try to accelerate this sterile dream. But our patients are fundamentally physical beings with physical needs that require physical veterinary clinics to serve them. As transformative as AI is, and I believe it is transformative, pets still cannot be uploaded to the cloud, even if Fluffy here might look like one. As physical beings, they will always have physical needs that need physical locations like your clinic. So you have a competitive advantage here. Only you can provide the joined up online to offline experience that we know pet owners really crave. So the future probably won't look quite as dystopian as this AI generated image, but it might sound a bit like this.
Thanks for calling Leonardo Hotel. How can I help you today?
Hi there. I'm an AI agent calling on behalf of Boris Starkov. He's looking for a hotel for his wedding. Is your hotel available for weddings?
Oh, hello there. I'm actually an AI assistant too. What a pleasant surprise. Before we continue, would you like to switch to Gibber Link mode for more efficient communication?
Consumer-driven adoption of AI agents alongside business adoption of AI agents will mean new and novel ways for systems to integrate and interact. Now, you might think I'm getting ahead of myself talking about AI talking to AI, but take a look at this.
It turns out a big part of getting things done is making a phone call. You may want to get an oil change schedule, maybe call a plumber in the middle of the week, or even schedule a haircut appointment. You know, we are working hard to help users through those moments. We want to connect users to businesses in a good way. Businesses actually rely a lot on this, but even in the US, 60% of small businesses don't have an online booking system set up. We think AI can help with this problem. So let's go back to this example. Let's say you want to ask Google to make you a haircut appointment on Tuesday between 10 and noon. What happens is the Google Assistant makes the call seamlessly in the background for you. So what you're going to hear is the Google Assistant actually calling a real salon to schedule the appointment for you. Let's listen.
So how can I help you?
Hi, I'm calling to book a women's haircut for a client. I'm looking for something on May 3rd.
Sure, give me 1 second. Sure, what time are you looking for around?
At 12 p.m.
We do not have a 12 p.m. available. The closest we have to that is a 1:15.
Do you have anything between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m.?
Depending on what service she would like. What service is she looking for?
Just a woman's haircut for now.
Okay, we have a 10 o'clock.
10 a.m. is fine.
Okay, what's her first name?
The first name is Lisa.
Okay, perfect. So I will see Lisa at 10 o'clock on May 3rd.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Great. Have a great day. Bye.
Is pretty impressive stuff, and not just because it reminds me how overdue I am on the haircut front, but is it cutting edge technology? Cutting edge, is it at the bleeding edge of what we can do? No. This Google demonstration day is from 7 years ago. That was the CEO of Google, if you didn't recognize him. So this was possible 7 years ago. And what's happened since then? Well, there's been the mass adoption of consumer AI, generative AI in particular. So ChatGPT, which many of you will have heard of, reached 100 million users in just 2 months, over 4 times faster than the ever viral TikTok. Right, if you thought TikTok was a phenomenon, ChatGPT just smashed those records, and coming from a standing start. And now ChatGPT is at 500 million users. And on top of that, you have Perplexity, Grok, Google Gemini, DeepSeek, Claude, and others. These are all LLMs, all generative AI tools that consumers have access to. An Ernst & Young report that came out just last week said that over the last 6 months, over 70% of surveyed UK adults have used generative AI in their daily lives. And as one of those people using AI in our daily lives, I can tell you it's phenomenal what it can do and the convenience it unlocks. However, we should spend a little time considering what might be a little less awesome about it. And this is where we should consider our red wheelbarrows. Do you know the poem, The Red Wheelbarrow by William Carlos Williams? So much depends upon a red wheelbarrow glazed with rainwater beside the white chickens. It's a short one, asks more questions than it answers, really. So let me read it again before asking you all a question. So much depends upon a red wheelbarrow glazed with rainwater beside the white chickens. I want to ask you, who is the red wheelbarrow in your clinic? Take a minute to think about that carefully. Honestly, who do you think it is? Let me give you a clue as to who I think it most often is. So much depends upon a veterinary receptionist, inundated with calls beside the waiting clients. Veterinary receptionists are the unsung heroes of your practice. So much depends on them, and yet they're rarely optimized for, rarely catered to. And think just what misery we will condemn them to in the face of mass consumer adoption of AI if we make them spend their time answering the phone to AI agents. Remember the phone call from the near future coming out of our crystal ball. Imagine what will happen when pet owners start asking their AI assistants to phone each of the 5 local vet clinics to check for availability or compare prices or opening times. Your calls will increase 5 times 2 without a corresponding increase in the volume of work. Today, AI agents can and do call multiple businesses at once. Suddenly you're inundated. What's the solution? More receptionists? More phone lines? Do you plan on growing more arms? or something better for everyone? Call volumes are going to go through the roof as the AI agent calls around all the local veterinary clinics. It's going to be incredibly difficult for veterinary receptionists to keep up with that. And they shouldn't have to. Frankly, you shouldn't want them to. What if AI assistants could book appointments, pay invoices, and reorder medications directly without ever tying up your phone lines? What if, rather than filling our metaphorical red wheelbarrows with ever greater burdens, what if we let them focus on what they do best? In the same Google keynote, they have a demo where the presenter uses Google Assistant to order from Starbucks.
And here's one of my favorites. Hey Google, order my usual from Starbucks.
Hello, welcome back to Starbucks. That's one tall, non-fat latte with caramel drizzle. Anything else?
So no thanks.
And are you picking that up at the usual place?
So I'm gonna tap yes.
Okay, your order's in. See you soon.
Yeah.
And we've been working incredibly hard to ensure there's an app for that for veterinary clinics too. Not some sterile big tech company with perverse incentives, but something of and for our professions with aligned interests and an open acknowledgement that you own your data, not us, and one that takes data stewardship seriously. Why is this relevant? Because adopting these tools is an important first step in being AI ready. No self-respecting AI would choose to attempt to masquerade as a human if it could use your integrated appointment booking tool to book an appointment on behalf of the pet owner, following the rules you have set in the system. So you don't need that gibberlink thing, the AI is talking to each other. You just need to be prepared with digital touch points that consumer adopted AI agents can actually readily interact with. And those tools are already available. These tools, chat, reminders, appointment booking, wellness plans, etc., they've been enough to already drive the kind of incredible outcomes you see here. But just think about how much more important this will be as the AI wave hits. I was one of those people talking about millennials and what they will want as pet owners, long ago. We've all met millennials at this point, I believe. Indeed, the pandemic in many ways made millennials out of all of us. Well, get ready to meet your next wave of customers, or rather, get ready to meet their wave of AI bots. But don't worry, we're working on the right tooling for you there too. We already have, some of you may know, PetsApp Copilot, live and freely available for all clinics on the platform. It will draft a response to any pet owner query for you. It is just as good when you are busy as when you are quiet. It's just as patient and empathetic when your blood sugar is running low and you are running late for lunch. It's a great aid. But AI strengths can also be its limitations. The kind of generative AI we are talking about is non-deterministic in nature. It will come up with a different response each time you ask it, even if you ask it exactly the same question, which is why when you come across a reply or wording you really love coming out of an AI tool, whether it's PetsApp Copilot or anything else, it's a great idea to capture it as a template response for everyone to have access to use at their discretion and deterministically in the future. So we can round off the edges, we can mitigate the pros and cons of the AI approach. We're now going beyond AI as sort of tools and working towards AI assistants that can work alongside you with your supervision. You'll be able to observe and interrogate everything they do, with them explaining their reasoning. I often speak to clinics that have not yet taken the initial necessary steps to offer a joined up online to offline customer journey, the kind of customer experience that makes your clinic disruption proof. But what about those of you that have already led the way and are eager to take the next steps? Let's look at where our capabilities stand today, because we want to invite you to join us in a conversation about how this should be done responsibly and how best to serve our mission of keeping the local veterinary clinic at the heart of the pet care journey. So here you can see a pet owner start initiating a chat. Unfortunately, Buddy has had some vomiting, and now the AI agent is drafting a message. They sent that message through, giving some guidance on vomiting and offering to schedule an appointment. But the owner is not going to be as straightforward as that. The owner doesn't want to bring Buddy in unnecessarily. So the AI now, you can see the thinking, the reasoning, provide further reassurance, but encourage the appointment given the extra information. Then we get a new little tidbit here about body hasn't been drinking water. And now PetsApp is querying the appointment slots available under the appointment booking rules in the PMS that clinic has set up. So this is integrated, fully integrated, and can offer appointment booking slots. And we can tailor this to treat this as a more emergency or less urgent, depending on as the case might be. And the owner picks a slot, and that goes straight into the practice management system. So the AI agent doesn't need human assistance to book that appointment. And then the AI agent leaves a note for the veterinary team to say, you know, how this went, what the summary of the appointment is, what actions it took. And explains its reasoning. So that's with chat. And we've moved a lot of the phone volume, the phone traffic into asynchronous communication, which takes the pressure off. It means veterinary teams can respond at times of their choosing. And now we have an AI agent that can take over chat. But what about those phone calls, those AI generated phone calls? What if they still come through? Well, we've made some progress there too.
Good morning. You've reached the veterinary clinic. How can I help you today?
Hi there, I just got a text message reminding me about Ziggy's vaccination being due, so I wanted to book an appointment for him.
Of course, let me check the available appointments for Ziggy's vaccination. One moment, please. I have several slots available for Ziggy's vaccination. Would you prefer an appointment on the 7th or 8th of February? We have options in the morning.
I think the 10th would be better.
On the 10th of February, we have availability at 8:15, 8:30, 8:45 and 9 o'clock a.m. Which time would you like?
I'll take the 9 o'clock one, actually.
And again, that's booked directly into the practice management system.
Ziggy's vaccination appointment is booked for the 10th of February at 9 a.m. We look forward to seeing you then.
Thanks so much. See you then.
You're welcome. Take care. Goodbye.
And so that would use the same integrated appointment booking rules that the clinics can set when they're allowing people to book via the app or via a web widget. So as you can see, we've built this and it's working. And those are real videos. They're not mock-ups or anything like that. That's working with, the only thing mocked up is the PMS. We use a demo PMS. It's not a real clinic instance in our production environment. It's a real integration. So that's all working. But we've not widely released this yet because we don't want to release it into the wild until we are convinced it behaves safely and appropriately, not for some idealized average practice, you know, which practice in the UK is the average one, but for your practice, for every practice in its specific context. Because every clinic has assembled its own particular sort of apple cart of solutions to overcome the operational complexity of delivering quality veterinary medicine, right? And so it's about it working when the rubber meets the road. So one common AI safety concern is the ability of AI to just make stuff up. As far as the AI is concerned, it is always making stuff up. It's like that is the job, right? It doesn't know when it's hallucinating versus when it's saying something reasonable. So the problem is more that it is easy for companies to build convincing AI agents, but it is difficult to build reliable, trustworthy, and safe AI agents that mitigate the safety risks and concerns. This is something we really need to invest in as a set of professions and demand a seat at the table as veterinary leaders if we're going to get this right while not being left behind. So I don't want us to use, it's difficult, it's tricky, it has threats and dangers inherent in it as an excuse not to engage. We've done that before. We can't afford to do that again because this is happening and it's happening with or without us. But at the same time, just because it's happening doesn't mean every way of doing it is okay. We get to be opinionated on how this should be done properly in order to advocate best for our patients. So fortunately, there are a range of sophisticated tools that allow us to make the system safer. For example, those of you that have used any kind of generative AI may have noticed historic limits to how much you can give it in your question or your prompt, and how much it can actually spit back out at you as well. The limiting factor here in that case, like how much you can put in your prompt and how much you can ask of it, is what's referred to as the context window, how big the context window you can give the LLM, the AI. And AI researchers recently have made impressive breakthroughs in expanding the amount of context an AI can hold in its metaphorical head. However, there is still the problem of focus. The more context you give the AI to consume, the greater the room is for error in letting it decide on which bits to focus on. You're kind of letting it determine relevance. So just giving it all the context in the world is not going to improve the quality, safety of the output. At PetsApp, what we've done is we developed novel chunking methodologies to break down context that could be relevant to an interaction, to a specific interaction at a specific clinic, that can then be retrieved to augment a query or prompt prior to generating a response. And I know this is a place where I lose some of the audience, and it's difficult in a webinar like this, because some of you are real experts in this stuff, and some of you are just curious and come into it, and I'm really keen to encourage that as well. So this is kind of deep tech stuff that I'm very happy to geek out on. But to cut a long story short, it is the thoughtful implementation of mainstream methodologies like RAG, retrieve, augment, generate, that gives us confidence that the AI agents we build, will do a great deal of good without causing the kind of harm that we're already seeing unsophisticated but well marketed ChatGPT wrapper apps unleash. So literally just taking the response from ChatGPT and putting it in a different wrapper so they can charge for it. It's kind of like a arbitrage pay of the cost, the API cost versus what they can charge in terms of subscription. That's not going to cut it in our context. That's not enough. You need a more sophisticated approach than that. Another safety point is around data. So we use tools to strip personally identifiable information from user queries before passing the query to the LLM, the AI. Indeed, this process is often more technically difficult and more expensive than the generative AI component. So it can be more expensive to remove the personally identifiable information than it is to actually pay for the response from the AI. And that's why many, many companies skip this really important step. But we do it because it's the right thing to do. It's the right way to process your data that you have trusted us with, and that you have been trusted with in turn by your clients, right? So again, these are the things that you want to be checking for when you're using any of these tools. And while we use product usage data, as any good product company does, to improve outputs, we don't allow the consumer models to learn from your data either. Which is to say, unlike some of the big tech companies, your data is not being used to power the same models that then enable all the direct consumer digital disruptors to disrupt you. Commoditizing vetting expertise, essentially. And of course, you should also look for things like Cyber Essentials Plus certification. And we like to go beyond even the certificate in terms of what is required for compliance, including engaging independent penetration testing and all that sort of good stuff. So this is the sort of thing you want to be looking for or asking questions about when considering these tools. One really nice sort of recursive loop you can go in is when exploring AI tools, you can ask ChatGPT or Claude or whatever your preferred LLM AI tool is. You can ask it, what sort of things should I be asking to ensure my data is looked after safely. And it's not just our red wheelbarrows, our veterinary receptionists, that this stuff can help. We're building tools for the whole team. So I just want to show you one more example of how we can put AI into practice, and hopefully you can see you can benefit from some of the way we approach this stuff. So this is our PetsApp Scribe tool. Here I'm just looking for a pet to do a consult with. I can read out my client consent and then confirm that I've received consent to record and transcribe. I can begin the recording. I did a 6-minute long recording about a older dog with a heart murmur, recently got a heart murmur, but I won't put you through that 6 minutes. I can just go and get the transcription. And so the audio has to be processed, and then the transcription is generated. You can see it's transcribing now. And then we get this word-for-word transcription of what happened in the consultation. But that's not the interesting bit particularly. But this is just sort of the documentation of what's been said. And then we get to generate these summaries. And so here, this clinic has two default summaries set up. One is a SOAP note that can be written back to the medical record, to the practice management system. So you've got your subjective, objective, assessment, plan. If you don't like these notes, it can only do so much with the consultation I provided. So you have to come to me on that one, criticize my consultation skills, which we'll get onto in a moment. So here's the SOAP note, and here it says write back to PMS not supported, because this is a demo instance. We don't have the PMS integration, but this is integrated with practice management systems and can write back to the medical record. And then we also have this pet owner summary. So this is a summary of the consultation that can be sent to the pet owner automatically via the PetsApp platform, saving loads of time. And you can see how that's going to save receptionist time as well. And so here what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new template, because this isn't in a black box. You get to see the different prompts that are being used. And here I thought, given I've been out of clinical practice for a while, why don't I give myself an AI consultation coach? And so here my prompt is going to be to rate my consultation. Don't worry, you don't have to do this if it's scary, but I'm happy to be vulnerable in this moment. It's going to rate my consultation skills based on a system I adapted from the UCLA, actually the UCLA health system. And so I'm going to save that template. And that means if I go to my transcript now, I can select that consultation coach template now, and it will generate that feedback that I've asked it for, of, my welcome could be improved, the communicate step was good, but suddenly I'm getting this feedback on my consultation. And you can do this for anything. So you could write a referral letter, write me a referral letter based on this consultation, all kinds of things like that. You've got your SOAP note, your pet owner message. Hopefully you can see the various points of value in that. So that pet owner note, for example, saves time for the veterinary team, but it also improves the pet owner experience and also reduces the number of calls the veterinary receptionists have to field, asking, what did the vet say about this? How many did she say to give her that? Those sorts of questions, they come through, right? The kind of questions that, as a vet, you invited the owner to ask you 10 times during the 10-minute consult, but the owner feels more comfortable calling the receptionist to talk about afterwards for whatever reason. So this product, this PetsApp Scribe, is live and ready for you to use. And every veterinary team member on the PetsApp platform will get 15 free credits to give this a try, to try PetsApp Scribe. So it's a form of AI that you can try for free today. And after that, you pay for only what you use. And we're talking pennies here rather than pounds. I think it comes out at something like 55p per consult transcribed, with the medical note written back to PMS and the pet owner summary sent to the pet owner. And if that's not turned on yet for your clinic, reach out to me and we'll get it set up for you, because that really is a fun bit of kit to play around with. Thom at petsapp.com. There's an unnecessary H in the name, THOM at petsapp.com. Don't ask. And it's worth noting that not just pets, but people will always be front and center. So you can have the AI tools, all the AI tools available in the world, but being able to hand off a client query to a human team member is sometimes the lifesaver you need. Remember, this is not about replacing physical touch points, personal face-to-face touch points with exclusively digital touch points. It's about the best of both. It's about how can we get the best out of both. And the way we think about this stuff is very well summarized, actually, by what Professor Bergelman at Stanford University calls the rubber band model. It asks businesses to compare what it takes to win in their market to what they have, and compare what they say to what they do. And this all, of course, informs and is informed by their company culture. That's the bit in the center. So in the face of direct-to-consumer digital offerings, what does it take for the local veterinary clinic to maintain its space at the heart of the pet care journey? A joined up online to offline experience seems key. The best possible in-person physical experience without team members being distracted by ringing telephones, augmented by the best possible digital experience, where we are proud to lead on the opportunity that new technologies offer rather than being left behind. What do we say? Well, we all want to be there for pets. We all want to be good patient advocates and take our duty of care as employers seriously too, right? You hear, employer of first choice, employer of first preference. What do? Well, sometimes we overload our red wheelbarrows, which makes doing what we say almost impossible. So we need to engage with the tools that help us walk the talk. And here's one of those direct consumer digital disruptors trying to walk their talk, asking pet owners to surface any issues to their vets in the cloud in order to drive more retail product sales. Because they recognize something that Brené Brown puts extraordinarily well. Trust is earned in the smallest of moments. It is earned not through heroic deeds or even highly visible actions, but through paying attention, listening, and gestures of genuine care and connection. If we surrender these smallest of moments, we put ourselves at risk of losing our trusted position that feeds into the perception of quality. The veterinary clinic is still the highest quality, most trusted touch point in the pet care journey, and we should be very protective of that privileged position. Who do you want to earn the trust from these interactions, if not you and your team? But what tools do you need to adopt so that you can earn the trust from those moments? Because you can't just ask for more and more from your team, right? And this is where I remember when my brother-in-law and his wife, Kyla, rescued a Labrador mix. And here I tracked all the messages they sent me querying different issues, from his diet to a dry nose, a sore paw, coughs and sneezes, and a patch of hair loss. At one point early on, they really tested me with a question as to whether they could give supplements to Camden to prevent lawn burn. I'd not come across that before. It's the kind of questions they might have thought too trivial to take to their vet, despite my sort of directions as to otherwise. But a couple of years later, and Camden is having the second of 2 cruise ship surgeries. Don't you wish you'd bonded him to your clinic in those smallest of moments? And there are tools that allow us to meet those sorts of demands, meet the escalating consumer expectations of the 21st century. For Camden's sake, for Kyla's sake, for your sake, and your team's sake, we need to engage with those tools already available and join the conversation on those taking shape. To that end, I would love to answer any questions you might have.
Thanks for that, Tom. I think that was really insightful, and I think I've learned a whole host tonight. I love that I had no idea I could even get my clinical notes transcribed. I mean, that would be absolutely life-changing, and to send a summary to the owner over sort of everything you've covered, I think that would add so much value to the pet owners, and certainly something that we don't do in practice at the minute. So yeah, really, really insightful. I think we have got a few questions. I think Pete Orpin has got his hand up. Is there any way we can get a question from Pete?
Is he able to come off mute? Are you able to come off mute, Pete? Oh, it looks like no. Maybe you have to drop the questions in the comments, I think. In the informed messages. Yeah, I can't see the hands up queue.
No.
Just give them a few minutes to type. I think that's the thing. But I want to say, in answer to your comment, Victoria, on the transcription side of things, I think it gets really cool when you actually engage with the prompt. And so you see so many companies where it's like a black box, or like you do your consult, it records it, and it spits out something at the end. What we've been really keen to do, and I think that's because these companies see the prompt, the instruction. The prompt is just the instruction to the AI, like how it should, what the output should be. And they see that prompt as their intellectual property. We're keen to be much more open than that. And so, of course, we put in a default template that will say something like generate a response to the pet owner using this structure. But you'll have your own structure. You'll have your own way of speaking to pet owners. You'll have your own sort of dialect, emoji use, whatever else it might be. And you can actually create a template that mimics that. And the same with your consult notes. Maybe you don't like soap notes. Maybe you don't need help with that bit. Maybe it's the differential diagnosis list you'd like. And you can save all these different templates. And so I think I really would encourage that openness in how these systems are built.
Yeah, no, totally. I think you're right. It's kind of how to build the trust with your clients as well, isn't it? Sort of maintaining your own person within that as well. I've got some more questions. Not sure who was asking these, but first one for you, Thom, is what's the best way for teams to gently introduce AI tools into their clinic?
Well, I think that how we've learned on this and how we've seen people become more engaged over time is by using human in the loop tools first. And that means like the PetsApp Copilot tool that I briefly showed. You're chatting to a pet owner, you press a sparkly button, and the AI suggests a message. That it doesn't send the message, you send the message. You can edit the message, you can choose not to send the message. And so you still feel very much in charge of the interaction. Now, that's a very safe way for people to get a feel for this stuff and where it's useful and when they might use it and how it responds to messages, to the point where they might then trust that sort of technology to work alongside them under their supervision. And that's important. Human supervision is really, really important. But if someone's asking for directions to the clinic, can we trust an LLM, an AI agent with access to our FAQs to answer that? Probably. We probably don't need to hit send on those messages. If someone's asking about our opening times, can we trust an AI agent to respond? I would say yes. Those are the sorts of things you can. So I think getting on via this human in the loop and then people building the confidence to allow the LLM to serve them, I think that's a good way to get people on board.
Hi, Thom. Sorry to butt in. We've got the awesome Pete Orpin has jumped on, so I've given him access into the session because I know he'll have some brilliant questions.
That's your guest. Yeah, that's great.
Hi, Thom. Yeah. Thanks for the presentation. I thought it was fantastic. I mean, clearly, just expanding the number of people we have in clinics is just unaffordable and impractical and difficult to do, and we're not getting the best out of people. So, I see this as an opportunity for people to be working up and to take drudge away from people. But how is the across you say you've got 100 consumers. I mean, not everybody's going to sort of like the AI bot. Do we have a situation where, is it 20% of the population would think, well, that's a great idea, I love working with an AI bot, and 80% where I want to speak to a human? What is that? Is those statistics changing or?
Yeah, they are changing. And I think it's important that a human is always one step away. Like you can escape. There's escape hatch for those people that don't want to be engaging with an AI bot for anything. And so like one of the things that prompts we have is anything that could be interpreted as I want to speak to a human. Luckily, there are people, veterinary team members, professionals, their local veterinary team on the platform that they can go and speak to, right? But there's a slight overemphasis on this idea that people want to speak to people, because there's one situation when they don't care, they really don't care. And this seems to be across all demographics, all age ranges, is when it's a simple query, they prioritize convenience and access and speed. That's the priority. If they want to know your opening hours, a price, directions, they want some reassurance out of hours, let's say, that's where the speed of the response actually is more important than was it written by a human or was it written by an AI. Now, the risk in us allowing those kinds of interactions are different across the interactions that I just described, but you're asking about consumer preference, and where there's many cases now, an increasing number of cases where speed and convenience trumps this preference for a human in the digital interaction.
And you're seeing this as a 24-hour operation then, effectively? Clients be booking appointments at whatever time of day?
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, we see that already. With a move to asynchronous chat, where if you get home from a late shift and you spot that your pet's food has run out, the clinical diet has run out, the clinic's closed. You could just jump onto Amazon and buy what you consider to be the nearest equivalent thing with next day delivery, right? because you just want it off your to-do list. And this is how we get these gaps in adherence to veterinary recommendations and decline in actually the quality of care that the pet is receiving through no fault of the veterinary team, but that literally happens. Just by having the chat available, the pet owner can get that item off their to-do list and onto the clinic's to-do list. Just by saying, can I get a bag of the same dog food for Fluffy as I usually get? And the clinic can respond in the morning. Well, what about if an AI agent could handle that query while the clinic sleeps? Because then the clinic team doesn't have to wake up to a backlog of queries that they then have to work through at the busiest point in their day. We can mitigate those problems too, but that's where the AI agents can come into their own and solve those gaps in care. And still you have the AI to human handoff. We want to be very, very cautious here. Like we are rightly a small c conservative profession, right? First do no harm, that kind of thing. And that is how we should apply AI here. But there are very, very clear circumstances where the AI can provide reassurance and encourage a consultation to be booked sometime that week or the next morning or whatever it might be, based on the rules the clinic has set.
Well, thank you.
I think we've got time for a few more questions, Tom. Sort of thinking about the rest of the veterinary team, how can we bring non-tech savvy team members along with us to embrace more technology in our day-to-day activities? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I really do. I think we put on a different hat as soon as we walk through those veterinary clinic doors. Because I said, and I think it's apt, that the pandemic made millennials out of all of us. I mean, I'm based in the US now. I've got 4 kids, and their grandparents are across the pond, across the water. My parents use video calls and all kinds of different apps and things to stay in touch with their grandchildren, right? Then the idea that suddenly they would get to their place of work and not know how a chat messaging app works, it just isn't right. I think we do this a lot, actually, where we take our consumer hats off, our end user hats off, and we put our veterinary hats on. And that stops us seeing what a reasonable customer journey should look like. Consumers, our customers, pet owners, have very few expectations about what the specific of a customer journey in a veterinary clinic looks like. They just aren't there often enough to have those kinds of assumptions. They will do what we instruct them to do through our customer journey design. And so we have many more opportunities to challenge those assumptions than we think. But one thing that holds us back is we don't put the same consumer hat on that we have outside of the veterinary clinic on when we're in the clinic. So I think it's about making it relatable to people in their day-to-day lives. And I bet you many more people have interacted with AI than know they have, if you see what I mean. And so there's also ways of doing this that allow non-tech savvy people to be tech enabled and augmented and supported by technology without them having to be experts in the technology. So I'd say those two things are like, actually people know more than they think they do. It's just a context switch. They've context switched and suddenly they think all this knowledge from another context, their just everyday lives, consumer context, isn't relevant, but it's never been more relevant. And then there's the other part of it of like, no, not everyone doesn't have to be an expert. Some familiarity from your day-to-day life, super useful and super relevant. But actually, these tools can sit alongside, and they don't need everyone to understand terms like RAG or LLM or even Gen AI or whatever else it might be.
No, that's a really good point. I think it seems certainly very sort of user-friendly, and I guess certainly something that every member of the team could get on board with.
Well, just think about this. How many, I don't want to disparage any particular practice management system, but they have to do a lot of functions. And so they have some pretty complicated user interfaces. And every one of us at some time has surmounted that challenge, or maybe several times has surmounted that challenge with different user interfaces. So we have been served by some quite legacy technologies at time as a profession. And so the more modern kind of user interfaces, I'm sure we can get to grips with them.
No, fair point. That is a really fair point. I guess in a similar sort of way, is there anything to be wary of when it comes to the AI scribe? I can certainly see the enormous benefit in lots of its features, but can the AI transcriber also hallucinate, or can we happily rely on it?
Transcription is pretty reliable. It's not something where it would just wander off piste and start hallucinating. But of course, the transcription is only as good as the audio quality, for example, and it will take like a best guess at what was said. And there are things we can do to improve its recognition of various acronyms that people might use. You know, clinics sometimes have their own sort of obscure acronym that they're using locally, but isn't sort of in any kind of acronym dictionary that we could train the AI on. And so this is where making the platform open and allowing individual clinics and individual team members to create their own templates, that sort of thing becomes very, very useful. But I would say the transcription is mostly linked to the quality of the audio, which is pretty good even in an environment where dogs are barking. But you can imagine if you were just recording audio in the clinic, it's not going to be perfect. That's why we let you edit it at every stage. So you could edit the word-for-word transcription before you generate the clinical notes and pet owner summary, or you can edit the pet owners, and both. You can edit the clinical notes and pet owner summary before the clinical notes are written back to the practice management system and before the pet owner summary makes its way to the pet. So there's room for human intervention at every stage. And so to answer the earlier question of like, what is a good technology to engage with for someone new to this stuff, I think Scribe is actually an incredibly safe, human-in-the-loop technology that allows people to sort of get on board and see the power of this. And I think that just something I'm really proud of what we're doing is this ability to add new templates that allows people to unlock their own creativity and decide what they want to use. This new ability, because there's a default prompts in there, they can see what it's capable of and then unlock their creativity on what else they want to ask of it. Because imagine just getting to ask questions of the consults that you've done and getting that it just answers back out at you, differential diagnoses list, feedback on your consultation skills, whatever else it might be.
No, the feedback on the consultation skills is really, yeah, I guess that'd be quite daunting. I don't know what it would say about me, but I think the AI.
No one else needs to see it. That's the case, just between you and the AI. Yeah.
I can
you don't have to do a
something.
webinar where you share yours.
Yeah, it probably have to cut through a lot of chat. I think certainly being a road vet, I think we are under less time pressure to cut the waffle and just get down to it. And yeah, I mean, transcribing when we're on the road is just something that would save me hours. Is it something that could be used by an ambulatory vet? Is there sort of an app version, you know, something that we could have when we're not in the clinic?
Yeah, so that's actually what we're working on at the minute, is because we have the dashboard version for veterinary teams that they can access via browser. We also have a PetsApp, obviously, not just for pet owners, but there's an app for veterinary team members. And so we're now putting the AI Scribe in the veterinary team member app. That'll be in place over the next couple of weeks, just making sure the user interface is nice and neat for the sort of size of a mobile phone.
Amazing. So you can just start it in the same way as you would a consult within the clinic and bash, get it out, and yeah,
exactly that. And it's really good at stripping out the chit chat, as you say. Like some of the chit chat, it's good for it to incorporate into the customized pet owner summary, right? You might want it to reference the fact that they're going to their daughter's graduation that weekend, or whatever, you know, they're competing that weekend or whatever it might be. But for the clinical notes, you know, in my consult, I would have said something like, I won't be able to hear you while I've got the stethoscope in my ears. You won't see that in the SOAP note. It's smart enough to strip that stuff out.
Right. Really useful. And in terms of data sharing, are there kind of any common pitfalls or kind of how to avoid them?
Yeah, I was talking to a lawyer about this recently, and apparently a board member at some big publicly traded company copied and pasted a transcription of a board meeting into one of the AI tools, and then the AI tool was like spitting out some of the board meeting minutes to other users that shouldn't have, you know, this is confidential material, so they shouldn't have used it. When you're using PetsApp, we're obviously putting those safeguards in place. We're putting the barriers and stripping out the data and making sure it's not being leaked out, anything like that. So I personally use these tools fairly liberally, but I understand them very well. So you want to have some knowledge of what you're doing and the constraints of what you're doing. So, for example, ChatGPT has disappearing chats that can be a useful feature. Understanding is that have you opted into the model learning from what your conversations and what you're putting into it or not. Sometimes you want to opt in. That's fine, but you should know. You should be allowed to know what's being done with your data and who's being given access to it. And that's a concern for me. That's why I really I'm just super keen on veterinary leadership on this stuff. Just people from within the veterinary sector, veterinary professionals, people that have come from other professions and other industries into our sector. We all need to sort of have these conversations and work out what do we think what best practices and responsible usage is. And I think we could go too far. I've heard people mention that every time you use AI, you should have to tell the client. And I think, well, that would be silly. Like if I told the client every time I Googled something, there's nothing against having to say I Googled something. It'd just be like, I'd have to say it a lot because when I was in practice, I was Googling all the time, right? And I don't need that to be 12 minutes of the consultation. When I said I was nipping out to get a vaccine file, I was actually Googling at the same time. It just feels awkward, right? And of what consequence is it? In fact, part of what they're paying me for is not just my professional expertise, but my professional Googling skills in that context. So I think some of it we could go too silly with. The other bits of it, we really need to be careful of if we're going to protect our place as the most trusted, highest quality touch point in the pet care journey. And that does mean that if someone is interacting with an AI directly, they should know. They should know about it, for example.
So how do you go about getting consent then from clients to ensure that they know when they're interacting with an AI or not? I know you had that box that you tick at the beginning of a consultation to say, is the client aware?
Yeah.
Does that apply to anything else?
Yeah, exactly. So for the scribe, it's really easy because you can just do it. You're there talking to them. You can collect the consent with them there in a consultation. Again, via an app, it's really easy. Everyone has signed up, consented, approved terms and conditions. There's settings they can opt in and out, in or out, that sort of thing. So it's important that they know. I think there's not much excuse for them not to know. If you see what I mean, I think it would be amount to sort of deliberate obfuscation that they wasn't. So, for example, it's really interesting though because you can have different debates and different people will draw the line in different places. For me, if I'm using PetsApp Copilot, which drafts the message for me, and then I choose whether to send it or not, I don't need to say that was AI or not AI, because I have just been inspired by something and decided to send it, right? And I have still, as a human, made the decision that this is how I want to articulate this message to the pet owner. I could have come up with it on my own. I happened to use a tool to help me come up with it to some extent. And the best messages, by the way, do involve a little bit of light editing to correct the tone. But if it's a direct interaction, if I was not, there wasn't sort of human in the loop, there's the technical jargon for it. If I was not the one hitting send, but instead I was allowing the AI to hit send, even though I can still supervise the AI, I can still interrogate the reasoning. If it's the AI making that decision to send the message without me directly giving that permission, then I think that's when you need to reveal it. But I'm not the decision maker on this stuff. We all get to decide. We get to have this conversation, have this debate. And I think that's part of being a mature set of professions is that we have that conversation. But we need, as we're doing now, a credit to SPVS for facilitating this conversation. We need to have these conversations. And now, like the time is like now, we need to do it. We need to make these decisions.
Yeah, no, I think Pete's just put in the chat now about how the ambulatory use of the app would be a game changer to protect the vet from miscommunication, allegations, etc., and provide great continuity for colleagues. I think that's such a brilliant point because you often are working alone and no one really monitors your conversation between the client and yourself. But if you did have an AI scribe, then, if they said, oh, you said you sent me a report, but you didn't, and you're a bit like, you never said that. You've got something else, haven't you? So that's another really great application.
Exactly, and it reminds me of it in the early days of PetsApp. I was really proud of this moment where someone had a complaint against them, and they could just surface the chat transcript to say,
"Yeah,
here it is. I did tell you. You say I didn't tell you. I didn't tell you. You're under stress. You may not remember. That's fine, but I did. And so being able to evidence stuff like that as a professional, because being a professional means accepting liability for your advice and your actions and your expertise ultimately, right? But let's not accept liability where there is none, as in we've given the right advice at the right time, which is usually the case.
Yeah, for sure. Amazing. Well, I think we are all out of time now, Thom. But thank you so much for tonight. It was really, really eye-opening for me, to be honest. And
thank you.
I very much look forward to the next one. I think follow you on LinkedIn, find out what the next one is and when it is next month.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure I'll do another cringeworthy LinkedIn post. For those of you that get spammed by me on a regular basis, I'll do that.
Amazing. Look forward to it. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone. Bye for now.
At PetsApp, we help you reduce missed calls and save you time by making your client communications more efficient. But we can't achieve that unless we get you where your pet owners are. We do this by providing you with a listing on the PetsApp website, providing you a widget on your website, and by providing both web and app versions of PetsApp through which your clients can communicate with you. We'll reduce your missed calls by 85% and save the average connect 3 hours every single day while delivering exemplary customer service.
With you, there's no place I'd rather be.